Thank you, and a very good morning to all of the committees and also fellow presenters here. My name is Nurul Habaib Al-Mukarramah, and I'm presenting other authors, starting from Dr. Maskun, Ms. Siti Nurhaliza Bahril, and Mr. Hasbi Asidik, and we will present to you our research within the title of Fragmented Agencies and Public Sector, which this become an obstruction to Indonesia's climate policy implementation. Next slide, please. So in this, we will focus on introduction, research method, research discussion, and also the conclusion. Next slide. For the introduction, we have known that the coal sector have become one of the biggest carbon dioxide emitter of the forest and other land use, or we refer as FOLU sector in Indonesia, by generating 315.40 million tons of carbon dioxide, where as we have known that the COP26 have begun in 2021, it urged all countries, including Indonesia, to sign global coal statement as one pledge to transition from coal to clean power, where although Indonesia excludes the third point of the GCES commitment to cease permit issuance, construction, and direct government support for unabated coal-fired power generation. Next slide, please. When we evaluate the NDC commitment, it is shown that the Indonesia have brought the same commitment. We're focused on 29% unconditional through business as usual and 41% conditional through international support, where this is known as previous NDC commitment brought back to the updated NDC through the long-term strategy for low carbon and climate resilience, or LTS-LCCR, brought by the Indonesia's Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Next slide. In looking at the LTS-LCCR as our scope of research, there are four types of findings that we found. First of all is it visions net sink by adaptation, for example, like transition to new and renewable energy or NRE by avoiding deforestation in the FOLU sector, where under low carbon scenario with low carbon scenario compatible with Paris Agreement target and current policy scenario, Indonesia aims to reach progress to net zero emission in 2070, and it aims to align climate goals and targets to national and international objectives, for example, like sustainable development goals. However, one of the issues here is fragmenting agencies and responsible ministries do occur, where ministerial agendas does not comply to each other. Next slide. Therefore, it arrives into our research question. Next slide. Yeah, how fragmenting agencies impacts the implementation of policy. And previous slide, please. And the second is, previous. Yes, how can the implementation be possible amidst the emergence of fragmenting agencies? Next slide. In this research method, next slide, yes. We combine with a normative and empirical method where we normatively analyze and policy agenda program in selected ministries, where it focuses on three ministries. First is Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, which we will refer as MOEMR, where we empirically examine what are the impact on the issues through statutory approach. Next slide. In the first question, after we analyze three selected ministries, it is seen that it is already harmonized when we take a look at the ministerial agenda of Ministry of Environment and Forestry, MOEF and MOF, which first of all, MOEF have proliferated LTS-LCCR, which has been referred into the national agenda, which urge all ministries to accelerate, develop, and strong economy focus on environment and low carbon, and forcing economic sector to focus on transition to green economy, which puts consideration on ecological basis. Where this, if we take a look at the MOF, it shows that it is already harmonized through low carbon development fiscal policy through state budget and national climate change funding capacity, and special budget to fund mitigation and adaptation. And also, it already injects fiscal incentive to new and renewable energy projects in Indonesia. But here is the moment where the fragmentation begins. As we have seen that it's already harmonized in the MOEF and the MOF, But if we take a look at the agenda of the MOEMR, yes, we see that it already commits to stop building new coal power plants by 2020. However, if you take a look at the data, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources subsidy to coal is much higher to the renewable energy through looking at Indonesia's state electricity company generation mix source of energy production. From 2011 and projected to 2028, the portion of energy production of PLN dominated by coal source tend to rise significantly by observing the installed coal-fired capacity from 20,000 megawatts to 25 to 60,000 megawatts in 2028, while renewable energy only shares 10 to 20% energy production by source. Therefore, the $70 per ton of capped coal sales policy have encouraged PLN in focusing on coal-fired generation, which leads into putting the development of the renewable energy behind. If PLN switches to renewable energy, PLN could reduce greenhouse gas emission by 36% and prevent an overbuild of 12.5 gigawatt of coal, gas and diesel that could lead into wasted investment. It will also save $10 billion over 10 years and maintain the security of supply of power system even with 43% of renewables. Next slide. So if we take a look, what are the impact? So if we see that there's a lot of commitments made by Indonesia regarding to the climate policy, but the issue is fragmenting agencies hinder the climate policy implementation. It becomes an obstruction in implementing climate policy. So even commitments have been translated to national policy, fragmenting agencies will become the major obstruction. One of the empirical evidence that we could see is when China Coal Electricity expand its project to Indonesia, our analysis shows that 70% of shareholder is China when it's heavily impacted when MOEMR imposed coal exporting ban as it's one of commitments to climate policy and the climate events happening in 2021. However, the issue is because China is the shareholder and China is the majority of the shareholder, it holds a dilemma between continue to expand because it has a dilemma between upholding climate commitment or investor interest. If this ban is, this would cause 700 perimeter deaths due to health impact of coal-fired power plants. So we could see that there's a lot of dilemma here and there where we take a look which sector shall we prioritize. And this is one of the impact of fragmented agencies. Next slide. So what are the possible solutions? So there are two things that we would like to propose. First of all is through ministerial agenda restructuration, because to undertake, it is very urgent to undertake a restructuration of all related ministries' agenda through revisiting their orientation and priority, especially to the three ministries that we have already analyzed, where each of climate policies are not supposed to be seen as individual agendas. So we should focus on policy integration by resorting priority and vision, focusing on changing the decisional logic of public officials. And the second solution is the multi-sectoral involvement. We have known that the sectors that are involved in climate policy implementation should not only come from the government but also from other sectors. So therefore, we would like to recommend to utilize the pentahelix sector involvement, which synergize not only related ministries but also cross-sectoral actors to achieve climate policy goals. We're putting climate resilience and sustainability as the ultimate goal. So all the ministries' agendas have to be coherent each other into the big agenda through LTS-LCCR 2050. Next slide, please. So when it comes into the conclusion, we have seen that the fragmenting agencies occurs due to unsynchronized sectoral policy which impacts in hindering implementation of climate policy, where policy agenda restructuration by policy integration across ministries by a multi-sectoral pathway utilizing available approach such as pentahelix would be very recommended. All in all, that's our presentation. Next slide, please. We look forward for any kind of question. Thank you very much.